situated.
You take your time, my friend.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah. Who am I talking to?
This is Carlo. I'm with the Animal House Radio from American Forces
Oh,
Network. We've had you on the show before.
got it.
Big success.
Got it.
So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Carlo. Okay. Yeah. Carlo, I remember you.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get started here. All right, everybody. It is 7:00. We are live here on Animal House Radio with a very, very special guest tonight. He is a phenomenal actor. He's been doing his thing since the early 80s. And I've been a big fan since then. Please welcome back on the show the legendary and iconic Tobin Bell.
Hey, good to be with you guys again, and with our marvelous Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard people who so diligently serve this country.
Absolutely, and a lot of the stuff we've been doing lately has been going in honor of our frontline heroes. So even more so, I appreciate taking your time, even though I know everybody's stuck at home right now. But you were one of I'm a big fan of yours. So I appreciate this.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
So Tobin, let me ask you. This is craziness, what we're going through, this pandemic. How have you been handling it?
Well, I try not to control it. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing I can do, or any of us can do except to try to be smart. And I in terms of my time, I had 2 or 3 different projects lined up. I was supposed to go back to Atlanta to do another episode of MacGyver but it's so difficult to shoot anything anywhere because of, you got to be 6 feet apart from everybody. And if you've ever been on a movie set, you see, hey, nobody who's 6 feet apart, and then you got to get tested every 3 days. And if somebody sneezes on the set, what do? You stop shooting, So it's problematic. So I'm just trying to relax into it, and I spend time with my sons, and I work out a lot, and try to stay healthy. And I've been doing a lot of writing and I'm a guitar player, so. Okay. Now I have no excuse not to practice.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. But you know what? It's really great that even though it took, it takes a pandemic, but you get a lot of quality time now, and especially you, because I follow your career, and you're always working. You as a matter of fact, you had I think you have 5 or 6 things that are in post production that must have been put on hold right before this pandemic hit.
I was in Augusta, Georgia, on the 12th of March, working on a movie, and the film got shut down on the 14th, so they weren't able to finish. And it's the same as everybody. It's been a shock. So I'm trying not to overreact to it, and and keep myself healthy.
Well, that's another reason why we decided to do these. We've been doing a lot of Zoom, so people can see the actors and actresses, and this news cycle, Tobin, it is so bad. I watch the news only because I want to stay informed. I get the bullet points and I'm out, because if not, it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, I don't watch it. I honestly don't. Between my son, I got a 20. My youngest son is 24. He watches a lot of what are they called? Webcasts or webinars?
Yeah. Yes.
Like guys like Joe Rogan, and he watches a lot of that. So I get updates from him, and in the morning, my homepage is the LA Times. So I look at the headline. And yesterday I saw the Supreme Court said that Trump had to give up his tax returns. So, I'm like you, Carlos. I look at the headlines. I say, all right, well, the coronavirus is getting worse in California. People are dying, but I can only watch so much of that, and then, I mean, I can't do anything about it. So except to wear my mask and try to respect other people and, and stay my distance, as much as I can and keep working my lungs,
That's
so
it. That's all you can do.
I do a lot of running, so I get a good sweat and breathe heavy.
I miss running since the gyms shut down, but I'm going to start again because I'm down in Jersey by the beach, and they just started opening up everything again. So I'm going to go back to running early in the morning with the sunset and sunrise and everything. So that's pretty cool. But
and then they start coming back. They say, okay, we're in phase 1 now. Now, wait a minute, we're in phase 2. Oh, wait a minute, we're going back to phase 1. Now we're going back to, you can't go out.
Yeah.
So it goes forwards and then it goes backwards. So, I just got to relax and do my best. I keep trying to find different routes because if I try to go run on the beach, they close the beach, for 3 days over the 4th of July, So, and then they open it, and then they close it, and then they don't. They close it, but they don't enforce it. So there's plenty of people. So it's hard to figure out exactly what the rules are. I don't know if you're feeling that way, Carlos, but
it is. They changed their mind. And they opened up New Jersey, and now they're saying, oh well, I think we might have regretted it, and then.
Exactly.
And I heard in L.A., we talked to a lot of celebrities. It's getting worse. The cases are going up, and maybe not as many deaths, but, and this protesting don't help, and they're talking for you guys out in L.A., September, October.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
I'm a big Yankee fan, so I was just tuning in. I've been watching. I'm so desperate for baseball that I've been watching the 19 playoff, the 2019 playoffs between the Nats on the MLB archives. I tune into those, but apparently they're going to start on the 23rd. Yankees are playing either the Nats or Philly, 60 game season, and so. I'll be watching that, and as I'm watching it, trying to make believe everything's okay.
Yeah,
it kind of gives you. It's kind of encouraging when you see people playing baseball, even though there's no sound in the stands. There's nobody there.
Right.
So that's pretty weird.
You get to test your acting skills that you're actually enjoying the game.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I'll get some sort of soundtrack, to run, and when the guy gets a hit, I can run the sound.
Yeah. You know what I've been doing, Tobin? I've been watching, like I said, I won't do the news. I've been watching like Gilligan's Island, anything to make me laugh or uplift. Dean Martin roasts on YouTube, anything I grew up with in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? That's what I've been,
I know. It gives you a sense that all's right with the world, and it may not, obviously, between out here in Cali with the wildfires, we got global warming going on. We got Mr. Trump in office. Now we got the pandemic, and then L.A. I don't know. Yeah, well, I was watching New York as well. I lived in New York for 39 years, Carlos. So I'm a New Yorker, and before I started living out here, and so when I watch stuff from the East Coast, I'm talking about the looting and the protests, and you add that to the mix, and so we got to breathe. We got to keep breathing and be patient.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
As bad as it seems, ain't nobody shooting at us, and nobody's bombing us like they did in the 40s. So. And so it could be worse. So
there's a bright side. It's hard to say, but
Yeah, and the thing is, it's going to get better. And we gotta. Nobody ever said everything was going to be easy. Whoever said that? You gotta knuckle down and keep your head about you and be kind to other people and and do your work and lift up your neighbor if you get an opportunity to do that.
Amen.
So,
that's what you got to do. But
amen.
I tell you what, Tobin, I really, it was such a surprise, and let me preface this by saying that I wasn't, being a guy that grew up in the 80s, and I love all those sitcoms and the late 70s and stuff, I'm not a big fan of rebooted series, but I actually enjoy MacGyver, and it was so cool to see you in that. And I'm hoping you do more in that, because I was like, wow, now they got the quintessential bad guy in here. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, they're pros. They've been working on that show for a little while, and it was a pleasure to work with all of them. They shoot it in Atlanta, and
right.
That's a great city, and it certainly produced a lot of good music. Like Gladys Knight, she comes from Atlanta.
Absolutely.
And so I love a chance to try to bring something to a well-established show. So I'm hoping we have an opportunity to do more. I think they're going to try to build that storyline, and if we're lucky, we'll be able to go back to work. But
yeah, well, with any luck, yeah, hopefully. But I was so happy to see you in that, and like I said, I follow you from the '80s. I mean, I remember you in Tootsie. A lot of people don't realize that you were like Jimmy Conway's parole officer in Goodfellas. Only like the diehard fans would know that. But I mean,
yeah. Well, I had a little scene in that got cut. It was right after I shake hands with De Niro, and he comes into my office and he sits down, and I had like 3 or 4 lines with him. But that happens when you're a starting actor, and they have to trim stuff. The film's too long, so they didn't feel like they needed it, so I lost that. But when I knew I was going to have a chance to shake hands with Bobby De Niro and work with Scorsese, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this no matter how. I learned early on, Carlos, that it's not really about the size of the role. It's kind of about
the opportunity and the experience, just to say you did a Scorsese picture, right?
Yeah, exactly. And having him, if Scorsese says, I like what you do, and this isn't a big part, but I want you to do it. You do it, so you have a chance to, when I did an episode of The Sopranos, and I flew. They were shooting it in Queens, and just to work with Gandolfini.
Yeah.
And he couldn't have been nicer. And so whenever you do jobs for different reasons, Carlos. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's location, but very often, with the first Saw film that I did because Danny Glover was in it. And I had never worked with Danny Glover, and I was so excited, to meet him and to, be in a film with him. So that was a compelling reason to do that film.
He's a phenomenal actor. I don't blame you.
Yeah. And then Saw became what it became. So you never know when you say yes to something where it's going to lead.
Right.
So I recommend. If you can say yes to something, say it. If you don't want to, or it just rubs you the wrong way, then don't. But if there's any way to say yes, because sometimes fate is a strange. Careers are the elements of luck.
Right.
Is huge. Right time, right place.
Well, it's all about timing, I think.
Yeah.
I just. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Carlos. I was going to talk a little bit about this film I did down in Mexico a year or so back that's been released recently on Lionsgate has released it on their network called Shudder. And the film, we shot it in Mexico City over 3 weeks. It's called Beelzebub, and it's pretty intense film about demonology. And it's just being released this week, July 7th. And I was working with a bunch of Mexican artists, actors, makeup people, amazing. We were working at the Churubusco Studios, which is a historic film studio in Mexico City that goes back to the 1930s.
Yes.
There's a very rich history of film in Mexico that a lot of people don't know about, but they're amazing down there. Really great artists, the scenic designers. I was working with a director who had a very strong visual sense and terrific actors.
Right.
Some of whom have worked at the Goodman in Chicago, and so when you get pulled out of your comfort zone
mm-hmm.
and thrown into a foreign country, I mean, I worked in Bangkok, I worked in the Czech Republic, but working down in Mexico was amazing. It was really, really great. Great locations, great artists, and so I recommend it. Beelzebub, it's called, and it's on the Shudder. It's streaming. Start streaming this week. I think it went July 7th. That was a couple of days ago, on the Shudder network.
I gotta check that out. Yeah.
For Lionsgate. Yeah, I play a former Vatican priest who discovers that the Messiah has returned to Earth in the form of a young boy, and he tells his bosses what has been revealed to him, and they don't believe him.
Yeah. Okay.
So he takes off his collar and he goes looking for the kid.
Oh wow!
So that's the setup.
I like it
it's
already.
pretty cool.
I haven't even seen it,
Yeah.
But you mentioned timing before, and I'm in stand-up comedy myself. Not only do I do the radio, but somebody once said, I think it was Don Rickles, when I got a chance to open up for Don Rickles, one of the greatest experiences of my life.
I absolutely love Don Rickles.
Love him. He said, timing provides you your break, talent provides you your longevity. And I live by those words.
That's very good. Yeah, that's very good. It's very, very, very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I had a question for you, Tobin, and I heard I saw in a previous interview that you did that you're really not a big fan of the horror genre. No,
I never was. I never, Carlos. I never had seen. I didn't like going when I was a kid. I didn't like going to the movies being scared. I would tuck down behind the seat in front of me and close my eyes and block my ears.
Oh wow!
So that was not I wasn't drawn to it when I was younger, and actually as an adult, if you ask me my favorite genre, I'd say probably period pieces, historical drama. I love that. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's out on a frontier,
right.
Whether it's space, Alaska, some mountain in Nepal, or anything where someone has gone beyond the line. I'm fascinated by that stuff. So those would be the kinds of things I like.
Right.
But I've gotten to. I had such an education, Carlos, about horror because you can do as much with horror as you can do with any other genre. Mm-hmm. It comes down to the writing.
Yes.
And if you have excellent writers, you can layer the story. Horror has always been the weak sister of film genres because producers and writers always thought, if you get enough scares in it, that's all you need. Scares and some twists and turns, and you're done.
Right.
Well, that's not true. You have to do the same, or you can do the same thing in horror. You can care about the characters. They can have relationships with people, and which makes you care about them more because that provides a window into who they are. And so, I had never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, never seen Amityville Horror, never seen Chucky, never seen. I just don't see those movies.
Right.
But
right.
since I was so involved in Saw and have met so many Saw fans, horror fans, not just Saw fans, but
Right.
horror fans, people who honor the genre.
Right. Right.
They honor it. You go in their house, it's all over the walls.
Right. They're diehards. Yeah.
They have a den devoted to it.
Yes.
So that they're like Yankee fans or
Yes.
Mets fans. So it's that kind of passion, and I just, and they're so smart. Horror fans are really they pay attention to detail, and they have a very high level. They want more. They want more intricacy,
Right.
more complexity, more scares. Now, the scares are important because it's a horror movie.
Right.
But you can do as much. I've benefited from the fact that I'm working with producers and artists who have let me do some things with John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, that have made him kind of interesting in some way, and it made it way more interesting for me to play him.
Right.
Because I've been able to flush out his motives and what's going on in his mindset, which is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
You don't always have a chance to do that, and so I much appreciated working with other actors who say, Tobin, I wouldn't say that. I say, well, what would you say?
Right.
And they'll say, well, I'd probably say this. I say, all right, let's start with that. And I've fortunately had directors who want to hear that stuff, because very often actors can help you find. Writers often know where they want to go.
Right.
Carlos.
Yeah.
But they don't quite know how to get there. In a human way, and they kind of point the direction. So if you pay attention, they'll give you clues. But then very often, when you put the words in the mouth of a human being, that human being can say, "I wouldn't quite say it. I think it would feel way more natural if I just said this, and we'd still achieve the same effect."
Well, you don't always get that luxury in Hollywood. Where you can
No, you don't.
Where you can suggest something to the writers. Usually they want it the way they want it, but that's one of the things why I think it's shown through in Saw, because there's a lot of reasons why. And backtracking a little bit, horror movies. When I was a kid, Exorcist scared the hell out of me. And that's what it was meant to do. And I've noticed over the past 10 years, they've evolved from these. Hacky slasher films, and they're starting to get more storylines, because I think, like you said, the horror fans, they demand that. They want, they want better quality, and the horror genre is it's a very niche-y, clicky genre. You know what I'm saying? It's not for everybody, but the people that
Right.
do love it, they're lifers.
Yeah, exactly. People are either into it or they're not.
Yeah.
And very often the people who are not into it are the people that are most critical of the genre.
Right.
But they don't really know much about it,
Right.
So I've gotten an education from the fans, how dedicated they are.
Right.
And that's been really cool. To be part of that.
Yeah. One of the other things that I like about Saw, and I think I don't know why, obviously there might be contractual obligations with some people. That's why I don't understand, and even not with horror movies, like say, for example, the Batman. Why do you have to have a new Batman every time you have to have a movie? You're like, I think, I can't really name off the top of my head a franchise that kept the same villain, bad guy through the whole thing. I don't understand why there has to be 10 Michael Myers, 18 Jasons, and I think that's where a lot of people jump ship. Maybe in the beginning they were fans, but saw it's consistency, and I think you need that, especially with a horror film.
I think you're right. I've done 8 of them, and it's been a hell of a not good ride because I've been able to make something of it, been able to craft a character from beginning to end, sort of, and that's what, when people become actors, to have an opportunity to fill out a role like that over 8 movies is unique.
Right.
And I've had an opportunity to work with Lionsgate because I became sort of the face of the franchise, and so I've had a chance to work with the people who work in the marketing department and get inside their head and see what they're thinking, and there's just, filmmaking is such a the answer. Let me go back to the question you pose. Very often those decisions are business decisions.
Right.
And they're not based on art. They're not based on, oh my God, let's tell a better story. We could really flush out this relationship, and the fans would love that. And let's get some great writers and pay them well, and let's flush this thing out. There are people, because filmmaking in Hollywood is a business.
Right. Yeah.
Very often decisions get made by people who aren't artists.
Yeah.
And they have their
business. Right. Yeah.
They have their own agenda, and since they own the material, that they have the perfect right to do that. Whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, that's another issue. But so you roll with it. It's like any other business.
Right. Yeah.
There are guys at the top. Right. One of the nice things about, you said you're a comic. You walk out on that stage, it's you, your material, and the audience.
Right.
Ain't nobody got any control.
Right.
Yeah. Now maybe getting you booked into the club, somebody had some control.
Right.
But once you're out, once you're there, you're free to do what you want to do. You're a one-man show.
Absolutely, I get what you're saying.
As opposed to a team.
Right.
When you're in a team, when you're playing with a team, you got to be a team player.
Right.
So you try to get the best that you can. Always try to get the best that you can, while still being a team player. And sometimes you win some and you lose some.
Right. You got to pick your battles.
Make success. Yeah. And I come up with all kinds of ideas, and
with John Kramer, Tobin, with John Kramer, what are some of the suggestions that you made for the character that you said, hey, let's try it, and they were susceptible to? Were they? I'm sure they weren't. They couldn't. Fulfill every one of your suggestions. But what are some of the nuances that you brought to John Kramer that you, thought would be a good idea?
Well, if you look at Saw 2, I had like 7 or 8 scenes with Donnie Wahlberg over a table in my kitchen. And Wahlberg, he's a cop, he's a detective. And he keeps walking back and forth from this room where there's all these monitors, and he's watching what's going on in this house. And then he'll see something going, and he'll walk back into the kitchen and talk to me. We'll have this exchange. And then he'd go back into the monitor room. And then one of the other cops says something. He says, all right, I'm going to ask him that. And he comes back into the kitchen where I'm sitting at this table all hooked up to these IV machines and everything, and heart rate monitors. So when I first met Donnie, we went over the dialogue for those 6 or 7 scenes. And, there was obviously the concern. Here we are, we've got a horror movie. It's 2 guys talking across a table. That ain't particularly scary.
Right.
So we wanted, and somebody told me that Lionsgate was a little bit concerned that it wasn't. Of course, there was a lot of scary shit going on in this house that was in another place, but the scenes between me and Donnie were across the table. And so when I first met Donnie and we started to talk about the scenes, we started crafting. Like, I'll give you an example. I remember working in a line about about Darwin, about how trying to make John Kramer's motives clearer, and saying things like, if you knew the exact, I mean, kids come up to me in parks and they say, "You're the guy," and I say, "Yeah, I guess I am," and we love those movies. I met 12-year-olds with skateboards, and they said, "We love those movies." I said, "What do you love about them?" He said, "They teach you things." I said, "They do?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Like what?" He said, "Like when you said, if you knew the exact moment of your own death, detective, how would that change how you live your life?" And this is a 12-year-old kid repeating that to me. Yeah. So that it was in working out that conversation where and then there was this other place where I talk about Darwin's trip to the Galapagos and survival of the fittest and whatever happened to that part of human beings where life is important and people are willing to fight for their lives and not have everything be easy, right. Because survival of the fittest, so he's not talking directly about traps, but he's talking very subtly to this detective. And so Donnie and I, we were able to craft those scenes so that they became cat and mouse. Right, and the tension just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. And so that's an example of improv. In rehearsal, we had 8 days before we had to shoot them. And we just kept walking that set, walking and talking. And then talking to the director and then getting approval from the producers about changing lines. And so it's an incredibly wonderful experience, from a creative point of view. And Darren Bousman, who was the director, shot it the way Johnny and I worked it out, shot it just that way. And it ended up in the film just the way we planned it. And that's rare. Usually stuff gets chopped up, but nothing got chopped up. When you look at Saw 2, it's a pleasure for me because if you can go through a whole career and you shoot a whole bunch of stuff, but in post they cut it all up and change it and change the rhythms and all that stuff. But in the case of Saw 2, it stayed just the way we shot it. It was very rewarding.
When you completed the first Saw, and I watching it for the first time as a fan and a moviegoer, it was so. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a fan, Tobin. I'm telling you straight out. It flowed. It had, you know what I'm saying? It fired on all cylinders with the cinematography and the grittiness and the suspense and the, you weren't a guy with a machete cutting people up, but you were every bit as dangerous, and, did you, when making that movie, and did you...
Which one? Which one are you talking about?
The first Saw.
Saw 1?
Yes, Saw 1.
Yeah, okay.
Did you have any idea that there would have been 7 more to follow? Did you get that feeling?
No. No. That's so rare. I did the film because I had learned, because I didn't have that big a part in Saw 1. I was lying in a pool of blood on a floor, silent, and then there's some flashbacks, where you see me moving around in the hood and wearing the hood and you see me moving around and you get a sense of who this Jigsaw guy is, but you don't know at that point. I don't know if I should even be saying, but most people have seen it. It's like 2003, so but the ending. Right. I wanted to do the film because the ending when I read the script, I didn't anticipate that ending.
Oh,
And
okay.
I thought, oh my God, if they shoot this well, this could be one of those moments in film. If you get one of these in your career, it's like when John Turturro threw his mother out the window in Four Corners. I was like, what the hell? I completely didn't anticipate that. And when he did it, it was shocking. Well, I figured this could be one of those moments, that where you just don't see it coming. And when it does come, and we've been talking about the fans, Carlos, and fans love that moment.
Right.
They just. So I did it because of Danny. Danny was in it, and because of that moment. And I had a car payment.
That's above all else. You still got bills to pay. But I mean, it's just a whole phenomenal franchise, and I don't. I know it's easy to say now, but I don't think I could see anybody else playing John Kramer. Though it's just you were made for that role, and I know. And don't get me wrong when I say this. Like I said, I followed you from the '80s. You've done a lot of phenomenal work, and that's not to besmudge any of that. But I mean, I like everything you do.
No,
I even like the
and,
work
and
you did in 24, which was one of my favorite TV shows.
Which one, 24?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah, it's a good show. Good show. Anytime you have a chance to be part of a very successful project, I think I did 5 or 6 episodes of 24 in season 2 or 3, and anytime you have a chance to, rub shoulders with people who have achieved what that series achieved, and whether it's X-Files or 24, I did an episode of Seinfeld. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yes.
It's working with Kramer and Newman was just phenomenal.
Oh,
I had the best time doing that,
it's those,
and I love the
those
show.
smaller roles that you seem to appreciate more because of the experience and what Seinfeld became.
Yeah. It was a real high point. I did 4 films with Gene Hackman.
Really?
I did Mississippi Burning. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I did Mississippi Burning. I did Loose Cannons, The Quick and the Dead. Oh, and The Firm. I played the main bad guy in The Firm. Sidney Pollack hired me sight unseen. He just, I had worked for him in Tootsie as a background guy,
Right.
But he knew me from the actor's studio in New York, and he called my agent in L.A. and said, "We want Tobin." I think because the guy I played in The Firm is called the Nordic, and I'm very fair, and the guy has long blonde hair, and so Sidney. I think Sidney thought I'd be good for this guy. He had seen me in Mississippi Burning. I played a FBI agent. So you say yes, and somebody might see you and say, "Oh, geez, that guy. I want him for my thing." So if you say yes, you never know who's going to be in the audience, or who's going to see you and appreciate what you're doing.
I tell you what, the first thing I saw you in. And I know this, like I said, I remember you in Turk 182.
Yeah, 59th Street Bridge. Jesus, that's amazing, Carlos. You're going back to square one.
Yeah.
I was so excited to get that part. I was really excited because I had done 35 films as a background guy and a stand-in. I did 35 films working for all kinds of directors and in New York.
Right.
Walking, carrying briefcases, cops, driving squad cars, you name it. And then I had some lines in Turk 182 up on the 59th Street Bridge. We worked all night, and that was Carlos. You did your homework, friend. You went all the way back.
I watched those movies. You don't understand. See, that's what I've been doing. I've been watching all those old movies, 16 Candles, Turk 182, Breakfast Club, and let me ask you a question about working background, because I've done a lot of it too. as an actor, I mean, you catapulted out and became a superstar. But was there a fear that you were going to be stuck just doing background work? Because I think that is a big thing nowadays with actors and actresses, that if the more background
Hell
work you
no.
do, that's all they're going to see you as.
No, 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 no. No, no. I wanted to be close to the camera. I wanted to get as close to the fucking camera, excuse my French, as I could get. Because I wanted to watch what the principals were doing and how does the director direct them? Could I do what they're doing? And the closer, and you can go to all the acting classes you want to go to. You know, I spent a lot of years at the actor studio on 44th Street, and there is no substitute for training. Absolutely no substitute.
Right.
So I'm not putting that down in any way. But there's always a difference between game time and practice.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be as close to game time as I could.
Right.
And, I sat for 12, 13 days as a courtroom reporter watching Sidney Lumet direct Paul Newman and James Mason in The Verdict.
Oh, wow.
And what an experience that was, watching Sidney Lumet, because Sidney was like, Dog Day Afternoon with Pacino. I mean, what a director that guy was.
Yeah.
And you know who was sitting next to me?
Who?
No, until somebody sent me a picture years later.
Who?
As a courtroom, right on the same bench. I have a picture of it. Bruce Willis doing the same thing as I was doing.
Wow.
Me and Bruce Willis on the same bench. And I didn't even talk to him while I was there.
Oh,
but I have a picture of him and me sitting on this bench. So in answer to your question, no. If you're supposed to, it was part of my training to get as close to the camera, close to the director, as close to the principals as I could get.
Right. Well,
So
I guess
that
it's the same dynamic
so
with
that I could
comedy.
see-
Stage time, stage time,
Yeah.
stage time. That's what you need. And I forgot, somebody made this saying that, and I liked what you were saying, that you weren't just there. You were there to work, but you observed. And they always said that the people who observe are the ones that make the best players and the best. They were liking it to baseball. Observers make the best players, like. And I like the way you said that. Like you were studying every aspect you could. You were like a sponge.
I was going, could I be doing, if Sidney Lumet was talking to me, how would I do?
Right.
Can I do this? That was the real situation. It wasn't theoretical. It was a real situation. And so I loved it, and frankly, Carlos, that used to get said to me all the time by my fellow actors. Sometimes over the actor's studio, that actors say to me, "What'd you do today, Tobin?" I said, "Well, I did some background work out in Queens." And we're like, "Oh, you did? Oh shit, I don't know if I could do that." They'd say, and I'd say, "What do you mean?" They'd say, "Well, because it just feels so. I want to be the guy. I want to be the principal."
Right.
And I feel like if I do that, then I'll never get to be the principal. And I just never felt that. And I understood.
Right.
It's not that I don't understand. It's just that wasn't a threat for me.
Right.
What was a threat for me was getting somebody to recognize what I had.
Right.
I had to, and Sylvia Fay, who did a lot of the casting for background work and
Right.
extra work and stand-ins. I used to do stand-in work because I don't know, Carlos, if you know what stand-ins do, but
Yeah.
in those days they had the light. Now it's digital, so the lighting takes no time at all. In those days, sometimes the lighting setups took two hours.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
during those 2 hours, the principals would go to their trailers, and the stand-ins would walk between the rehearsal and the actual shoot, the stand-in would walk the scene. You'd watch the rehearsal, you'd see where Paul Newman walked and talked, where he put his glass down, when he put his foot up on the chair, and then when they were lighting the scene, you'd have to walk and do exactly what Paul Newman did. So you not only were watching, but then you got to physically do it. So, that was instructive also.
Right.
It sharpened your powers of observation.
Oh, definitely.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it was all very cool, and you wait, you hope. I believed that someone would eventually see what I could do, and it took 20 years.
Well, at what point in your career did you as you were doing background work, did you say, now I'm getting noticed? What was that pivotal role that you say, okay, now I'm in the spotlight here?
It was 1984, and Alan Parker, now Sir Alan Parker, the British director, hired me to do Mississippi Burning. He brought me in twice.
Oh, wow.
Sat me down in front of his camera, and he knew all the lines of the other character. And he brought me in and sat me down and did the scene with me. Said, "Thank you very much. Goodbye." I thought it was over. And then he came back to Los Angeles, came back to New York 3 weeks later, and said, "I want to see him again." So I went back in again. Same thing. Sat down behind his little video cam and reading the lines of the other character. He's reading the lines, and he's going, "Tobin, don't act. Don't act. Do it again. Don't act." And I get a call 2 weeks later from my agent. He says, "Tobin, how would you like to go to Mississippi?"
Wow.
I was like, "Oh, fuck that. Really?" And so it was Alan Parker who gave me my first. I had done I had done Turk 182 and some other smaller things where I actually spoke. Mm-hmm. But this was a major $50 million studio movie on a really important subject where I was going to get a chance to go to the Mississippi Delta, which is such historic territory, and get paid at the same time, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's, let me ask you a question real quick. I know we're running a little long, but what you did Sophie's Choice, that movie was very controversial, and a lot of people are on the fence about it. What was that like, that experience?
I was essentially an extra in Sophie's Choice until Alan Pakula, the director, lined a bunch of us up in front of this old house, and he walked down the line, and he went, "You, come here." He picked me out of this line of people, and he said, "I want you to, I'm going to use you in the last shot of the thing." He made me a principal. He said, "I'm going to use you." He just picked me out of this group of people.
Wow.
And he said, "You're going to be the reporter from the Brooklyn Eagle," which is the name of a newspaper in Brooklyn at the time. And you have this little exchange with Josh Mostel. And so that's how that, it was a controversial film, but yeah. I mean, my part of it, I worked on it for 4 or 5 days, as one of the people from the neighborhood. And then I got pulled out of the crowd and made a principal and was the reporter for the Brooklyn Eagle, because obviously I hadn't been sufficiently exposed as a neighbor or as whatever. Now I could switch roles and become a reporter,
Right. Well, so you're a New Yorker, so that was pretty good.
Yeah. They changed my clothes and they gave me a hat to wear, so I was less recognizable. But I, when a director pulls you out of a line, it says to you, "Carlos, geez, maybe there's something about me. Maybe somebody's going to say something. Because I from the time. Remember, I told you I used to hide behind the seats in the
Right,
theater
you were
because I was
scared,
so
yeah,
scared.
yeah.
On Saturdays when I would go to the movies at the Weymouth Landing movie theater in Massachusetts, in Weymouth, Massachusetts, every Saturday. From that moment, from those days on, I always knew I was a film actor. I never thought of myself as a TV actor, or as I did a lot of stage in New York, but my goal was to make movies. And so when Alan Parker hired me to do Mississippi Burning, that was the beginning. And I'll tell you something else, Carlos. He brought me back to Mississippi 3 times.
Wow.
I went down there, I shot some scenes, and I went home. I thought I was done.
Yeah.
And then Alan brought me back to be in this little scene. And then he sent me home again. And then he flew me back and put me in this other little scene.
That's so funny how that works,
And every time I went back to New York, I went right back to shaving Parmesan in an Italian restaurant, which was my night job.
The humble beginnings.
But somehow I knew.
Yeah.
I knew that I could see the light in the tunnel. That.
Who were you?
Because
who were your influences early on that made you get that bug? Because I know you said you were, you used to hide behind the seats, but was there somebody that you admired that made you?
Everybody, yeah, Montgomery Clift. I liked actors who became like Gary Cooper in High Noon.
Yeah.
Guys who became, or women, Geraldine Page was a terrific actress at that time.
Yes.
James Dean, Paul Newman, Spencer, they didn't have to be method trained either. I mean, Gary, Robert Mitchum,
Yeah.
I did an episode of The Equalizer, and while I was still in New York, and Robert Mitchum was filling in for about 6 episodes while the guy who played the Equalizer was sick or he had a heart attack or so. I can't remember what happened, but they got Robert Mitchum to come in and do it. And and I was lying on a table because I had been shot, and I was like doing my best to be dead. And Mitchum walked past me. He was talking to somebody, and I heard him say to the guy he was walking with, he said, "Lee Strasberg, what a freaking charlatan." And I thought, wow, that's amazing, because Lee was my most important teacher.
Right.
And I always admired Robert Mitchum so much. And see, he had done such great work. And Kirk Douglas, all those guys from back then, they didn't have a lot of training. Spencer Tracy was a terrific actor.
Yes.
They didn't have a lot of training, and they kind of poo-pooed training. And when I heard Mitchum say that, I was like, wow. And he carved without the benefit of much training, he knew instinctually what to do, which is just amazing. That's inherent talent.
Yeah. Well, I'm, like I said, I'm a huge fan, and I look forward to seeing more stuff from you, especially when all this blows over. Hopefully, I can run into you at a convention and say hello. And
that'd be great.
I'd love to see you at on 24 MacGyver again. That'd be awesome. Because I know.
Yeah, it has a lot of history, that show.
Yeah.
I like working on anything where people are good at their craft, and that crew down there is pretty great. It's a great organization.
Yeah, and but plus, why I think too is I think what's his name is Henry Winkler has got a lot to do with that. So I think he's got his Midas touch on a lot of the stuff he does, and You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
chemistry is there. You could see it. You know, because like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a big fan of reboots. So, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
I really I can't thank you enough for the time. And I'm sorry we ran long. I apologize.
No, that's all right, Carlos. That's
Uh,
all right. I enjoy. I always enjoy talking to you, and my heart is always with the good work that the Armed Forces Network does.
yeah.
So,
Before we go, Tobin, would you
yeah.
do the last time we had you on? You did a phenomenal station ID for us, but we had an intern that kind of deleted all our files. So I'm trying to recoup all the ones we did.
Mm. Yeah.
So basically, you
What can I do?
yeah, introduce yourself and say you're listening to Animal House Radio, and then if you want to do something as John Kramer or something, have at it.
I Yeah. I don't do that.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
okay, yeah.
I'd be doing it forever. You know, people ask me to do it on their phones, and yeah, I try to save it for the movie. You know, people always want me to say I want to play a game, you know, all that shit.
Right, right.
But I just can't. I can't do it, Carlos.
No, don't worry about it. That's okay.
Yeah. So, Animal House Radio on what is it? American Forces Network, or just should I say that? Or
Yes, American Forces Network, absolutely.
okay, all right. Hi there, this is Tobin Bell. You're listening to Animal House on American Forces Network.
That's perfect. Tobin, thanks so much. Thank Kate for us, and please stay safe. And hopefully we see you on the big screen, and hopefully we'll see you out at the convention real soon.
Okay, you will. You will. Thank you, Carlos, and stay dry out there. How's the storm doing? Is it over?
It's starting to subside now, but I might have to start building Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
And just to let you know, Tobin, you always have an open door anytime you want to come on, my friend.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All
Tobin
right,
Bell,
Carlos.
everybody.
And you as well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Over and out. Bye.
All right, everybody. That was Tobin Bell. I'm sorry if there was any kind of audio glitch. I didn't hear anything on my end, but hopefully that's where we call good editing. But I hope you enjoyed this. He kind of opened up for us, and that was pretty good. I like that. And as you know, we're striving to keep putting out the content, and all I ask from you guys is just share our videos and get the views up. That's all we want. We want it to keep it going. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of stuff we didn't cover the last time that we spoke to Tobin, and so I really enjoyed this. And we'll see you all next week. We got a bunch of stuff coming up. We got Billy Gardell from, if you remember him, from Mike and Molly and Bob Hart's Abishola, which is currently on CBS, and we're still in the process of doing it, an Iron Eagle reunion with Jason Gedrick and Lou Gossett Jr., so you might see that next week. But we'll see you all next time right here on Animal House Radio.